Hey boys and girls, Village Idiot here again with another video, which is, wow. Alright, do yourself a favor, buckle up, get a pen and paper, get some popcorn. I don't know, do whatever. But we got a little information that actually Village Idiot is deciphering and picking and choosing and putting out there. The information is found in different books, comparing and contrasting different subjects and their views. And this is how I'm feeling that actually may be to turn somebody else's perception. Where I'm getting with this is that, you know what, I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it and let it roll. Now, before we go into this, as for me putting this information out there, I'm not going to remember everything that I'm saying or what I post, and I don't expect me to remember anything. I'm not going to remember everything. So the real main thing is to put the information out there so somebody else can actually take it and be able to make it their own and rework it for themselves. That's the main point of this. This is not about, I'm putting out this information to make myself feel better in such a way and say, I'm all that, I know this, I know that. No, I'm sorry, no. I'm not an expert here. But you gotta give a credit to a sex slave that is trying to school himself because he doesn't want to become a victim anymore and stay ignorant. Because if I stay ignorant, I'm always going to be taken advantage of. And I'm tired of getting taken advantage of. I'm tired of gay men looking at me as nothing more as a fucking piece of ass. Don't get me wrong, it's great that actually I can shake my ass, but I want to be perceived more than that. So if I don't do something about it, nobody else will. So, remember, these videos that are being posted up is about evolving. Watching me evolve, but also interacting, having that exchange, and having other people evolve as well. That's the concept with Village Idiot. You get something out of it, I get something out of it. It's that exchange. So, what are we exchanging today? Information, right? I mean, frankly honest. Remember, we're going to be talking about all sorts of different things, and I'm also going to actually talk about some certain subjects from my past life experiences that actually play with this. But first of all, let's talk about what is found in abnormal psychology. Now, this may be actually dated information, but it's good to acknowledge the dated information as well, actually the new information as well, to compare and contrast, to see what we came from and what we knew to what we have now, and try to merge the two. So let's talk about certain things here. First of all, let's talk about my favorite new word, my favorite new vocabulary word that I have never heard any psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist, or gay porn star ever use: paraphilia. Never heard anybody else use it. I was even shocked by this. I'm going on 40 years old and I have never heard of this. Hello, Village Idiot. So, in the paraphilias, the person is aroused by something other than what is usually considered a normal sexual object or activity. Males are much more likely than females to develop a paraphilia. Now, and sexual disorders are among the most stigmatized behaviors in society. Western culture generally regards heterosexual relations as the only acceptable form of sexual activity and tends to view all other forms as abnormal. However, views of sexual activity vary greatly among different cultures and can change within society over time. Good to know. Remember, old information to new information now. Now, I'm not saying that gay sex is abnormal, though there are some certain sexual positions that may be some abnormal to other people. Don't get me wrong, I love when somebody, rims my ass, but yeah. There are a lot of guys talking about rimming ass these days. I mean, there's not like a big old gay men's group that's just like, I love eating ass! Let alone licking the piss slit. But, we're supposed to embrace that sexuality, boys and girls. Go figure. So let's hit actually sadism, and masochism. Inflicting pain on others and subjecting oneself to pain, respectively, are sometimes difficult to classify as paraphilias. This is good to know. Keeping this in mind. Because of the consenting sadomasochistic couple, there are generally no social or occupational distress or impairments. Interesting. Hello. So, let's go back to this information here. Now, this is not found in a psychology book. This is actually psychiatric mental health nursing. How nurses view compared to what a psychologist would view. I love me some books. So, paraphilias, the historical and theoretical perspectives. Paraphilia is commonly clinical term meaning sexual deviations or disorders. So in a nurse's perspective, it's about deviations and disorder, not just disorders. The more you know. Paraphilias present inappropriate sexual fantasies involving sexual deviant acts, inappropriate sexual urges, and acting out these fantasies and urges. Now, we're going to touch upon social psychology and talk about pornography just in a few and see that view. But just right now, it's talking about acting out fantasies and urges. And in pornography, especially gay pornography, there's a lot of acting out of a lot of deviations, if not disorders. So this is the reason why those advocates, those porn stars, those directors, I would love to actually be able to ask them these questions from a psychological point of view and be like, why do you put this out there? Not to mention, obviously, it's probably more income, but, it makes money. But on the other hand, can you speak on this? It'd be great to actually know the inside of this. Good to know. Now, at least this is what I would like to see. If we have these advocates that talk about sex and intimacy and all these other things, then why the hell did actually, when it comes to gay men getting off on pornography, that are actually more aggressive creatures out there, are actually being one of those deviants acting on these inappropriate sexual urges that they learn from the videos and then place it on those men that actually they want to get off on? Let alone we're talking about our, submissive sex slaves here. Hello. So, to be frankly honest, check this out. It is unclear to what makes an individual develop a paraphilic disorder. Now, this is recognized by the DSM-4 text revision. Not to say DSM-5, and this has not changed. But that is very interesting to know that actually it is unclear what makes an individual develop a paraphilic disorder. Another good inclination to know. So, here's another thing. Found evidence that suggests paraphilic disorders are hereditary. Now, Goff found that children who were sexually active with adults during childhood were environmentally influenced and therefore potentially at risk for developing a paraphilic disorder. This is an example of victim turned victimizer or sex offender. Now, another criteria that is the behavior, sexual urges, or fantasies causes clinical significant distress in social, occupational, and other important areas of functioning. And let's not forget that actually when it comes to the paraphilia-related disorders, these consist of a group of sexual syndromes characterized by hypersexual but cultural acceptable behaviors. So now this is actually a little confusing here, because now we have a PDR, which is the paraphilic related disorder, which is actually accepted behavior compared to actually what is recognized as just a paraphilia, which is actually not accepted or seen as abnormal. Do you see where the confliction may be? Or is it me just looking too deep into it? Whatever. So the sexual recidivism. Here's another thing that village idiot did not know. Sexual recidivism? Sexual recidivism. Come on, let's say it together now. That's as bad as me going and using the new term that I learned for sushi, which is, if I'm correct, by the QPB Dictionary of Difficult Words, for sushi is Hold on. Thinking for sushi. Pornographic or books, I believe it's books or literature. We can use literature of pornographic material. Never heard that one before. So let's go back to sexual recidivism, or chronic, repetitive, inappropriate acting out of sexual behaviors considered unacceptable that have or have not resulted in criminal convictions. Sexual recidivism. I'm going to have to try to remember that. So let's talk about different types of paraphilias that are out there. Just to get our knowledge out there. We have heard of exhibitionism. We have heard of fetishism. We have heard of the pedophilia. We have heard of voyeurism. We have heard about sadism. We have heard of masochism. We have heard of frontalism. We have heard, actually, I think I've hit other things here. I'm not going to go too deep into the information in here because I think that's completely unnecessary. I'll let you guys do that because I feel that actually you should be able to take those steps next to see what you feel is true, what's true or not, and be able to rework with that. But it's just to acknowledge these words so basically we can understand a little bit more of where it's coming from in the past and how it applies to us in the future and how we may embrace it. So the paraphilia not other specified. Remember, paraphilia not other specified. I haven't heard this myself, so rework with me. Village idiots learning while you're learning. First of all, you have telephone. Now, I'm going to be enunciating this wrong, but feel me out. Remember, I don't have a Harvard degree here. If I did, then you would have been able to crucify me. I don't. So we have Satcagologica, which is obscene phone calling, 900 text lines. I don't even know if they still do that to this day. But that's kind of interesting. I would like to know the name of basically and people that actually are on the internet 24/7 watching porn all day long. I wonder what name they have that for now. And it would be under paraphilia, not otherwise specified. Another one we have is necrophilia, which I've heard. We have partialism, exclusive focus on particular body parts and sexual arousal. Zoophilia, participation with animals. Then you have sexual arousal by feces, sexual arousal by enemas, sexual arousal by urine, urophilia. Now, I've heard the term water sports used all the time when it comes to actually, here we go again, the porn community, or the porn community, especially within gay porn. I mean, I've seen some porn with some industries where basically they love peeing on a pig and the pig's getting off on it. I mean, I said the concept. I'd rather be pissed off than pissed on. Unless I wanted to be, of course, if I was a real true pig, then basically I'd be pissed off if I did get pissed on. Go figure. So let's urophilia, sexual arousal by contact of urine. Really? This is the first time I'm hearing this. Yay! It's hysterical. I have never heard anyone talk about this. Any porn star, any actor, any advocate. But we hear all these advocates, all these porn stars and everybody just talk about embrace your sexuality, let's put it out there. They'll use the off terms parts. You know, you hear your scat, your water sports, you'll hear all these other terms. But to hear the psychological term behind it, you would never know. I never heard this. So this is good to know. I'm hoping that this information may help somebody else as well. So here's another one that actually I do not know. Paraphilic cohesive disorder. Again, paraphilic cohesive disorder. Rape, aggressive sexual assault involving an act of sexual intercourse against one's will without consent. Now, we have heard the term rape and sexual assault up the ass. This is the first time that I have ever in my entire life heard paraphilic coercive disorder. Don't you think using those terms would actually make people just a little bit more go, yeah. Good to know, right? Great. So, let's touch about This, school up, boys and girls. We're not done yet. Social psychology. Media influences of sexual violence and pornography. Now, we got a lot of information here, but let me put this one here. Pornography that portrays sexual aggression as pleasurable for the victim increases the acceptance of the use of coercion in sexual relations. Good to know. Now, here's a quote by Robert Morgan. Now, I posted this on Facebook to a couple of porn stars, and I just wanted to get their input on it. Because it's good to know. They push out this information. They tell us to embrace our sexuality, enjoy our masculinity, and all this other hoopla. And that's great. You're going to project that image. That's great. Buy in it. It is entertainment. Entertainment. And say entertain. But, some people are just, people. So, to those actors that actually push out this image, I would really like to hear somebody ask this question and see what they may say about it. Why? Pornography is the theory and rape is the practice. This was quoted by Robert Morgan in 1980. Now, I'm not saying it is true, but that's valid point there. Again, I'll say it again. Pornography is the theory and rape is the practice. So, let's hit some information here. Social psychologists reported that viewing such fictional scenes of a man overpowering and arousing a woman can distort one's perception on how women actually respond to sexual coercion and increase men's aggression against women, at least in laboratory settings. Sorry, I gotta fix my leg here. Okay. Evidence also suggests that pornography contributes to men's actual aggression towards women. Correlation studies have raised that possibility. Social psychologists' research on pornography has focused mostly on the depictions of sexual violence. Now, in a survey of university students, 57% of men and 35% of women reported having sought out sex-related websites. Only 6% of men and 1% of women did so frequently. In the United States, pornography has become a bigger business than professional football, basketball, and baseball combined. Well, I guess we all need to get off somehow. So the last question arises: increased rates of violence and sexual coercion have coincided with increases in the media mayhem and sexual suggestion. To find out, researchers have explored the social consequences of pornography, which Webster Dictionary defines as erotic depictions intended to excite sexual arousal. So here's a question: does viewing sexual violence reinforce the rape myth that some women would welcome sexual assault, that no doesn't really mean no? That's a good question to ask our advocates that, tell us to embrace our sexuality, tell us to, be entertained by pornography, but here's the information right here that asks something different. Now, remember, I'm not saying this is true. This is just information to throw out there and ask that question. Because those experts that are in those fields should be able to give us answers and tell us their perception of what they've seen, since they work in that line of work, or they've been pushing that element of embrace the intimacy and all this other hoopla. Again, does viewing sexual violence reinforce the rape myth that some women would welcome sexual assault, that no doesn't really mean no? Now, I'm going to jump some information here because I highlighted a whole bunch of information here, which I found very, very informative. But I am going to hit this one here. Such aggression is greatest among those who have formed the sort of rape-supportive attitudes that pornography cultivates. In one careful national survey, 22% of women reported having been forced by a man to do something sexual. In another, 18% of women reported an experience that met the definition of rape. 6 times to 7, the perpetrator was someone they knew. Surveys in other industrialized countries often similar results. 3 in 4 stranger rapes and nearly all acquaintance rapes went unreported to the police. Thus, the known rape rate generally underestimates the actual rape rate. Now, 8 different surveys have asked college male students whether there was any chance that they would rape a woman. If you could be assured that no one would know and that you could no way be punished, a disturbing proportion, about 1/3, admit to at least a slim possibility of doing so. This would be some good information that we could have learned when we were, I don't know, in high school. Just to say. I'm sorry. Why wait till college to figure this shit out? If basically people are going to push sexuality and kids are going to engage in sexuality so early on in age, you might as well give them the information now so they can make their own decisions, don't you think? Just saying. Now, an alternative to censorship, many psychologists favor media awareness training that recall that pornography researchers have successfully resensitized and educated participants to women's actual responses to sexual violence. Our utopian and perhaps naive hope Freudian slip, by Edward Donnerstein, is that the end the truth will reveal through good science and will prevail, and the public will conceive those images not only to demean those portrayed, but also to those who view them. So men who sexually coerce women have to combine a history of interpersonal sex with hostile masculinity. There's some information here. I mean, I don't want to go too further into this, but if anyone sees this book and is questioning about, pornography and basically how they look at it, and it'd be pretty good to just take a look at it. Not saying that actually it's true, you're at your best to actually do it. I mean, I still have porn in my drawer, but I hardly watch it. Actually, I hardly watch any porn now. I wonder why. So, let's jump that one off. So, where do I want to go with this? Next, let's jump out from those subjects, that information that is there, and we are only on 23 minutes, which is great. We got great time. That means we're flying through information here. Why do I feel like it's necessary to talk about this information and give these experiences? Well, the information's not out there. With just LGBTQ community issues to begin with, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of people actually putting their information out there and want to be valid and push that out there. For me, on the other hand, I'm sorry. Sex slave here. Have to say it. And to be frankly honest, it's one thing to actually have someone be like, oh, you knowingly went into it. We could say that, but knowingly one thing is okay, but in an educational standard to be taken advantage of, that's a different story. So, yeah, knowingly, I mean, nobody wants to be a sex slave that stays ignorant for the rest of their life. And there is some truth that ignorance is bliss, but it's only going to be blissful for so long. So let's wake up, sweethearts. Please. This is the reason why we should be asking our advocates and our porn stars and whoever else that actually promotes sexuality these questions in such a psychological way. There's a lot of questions that also should be asked as well. This is the reason why they put themselves in the hot seat. Fine, great. But don't give me a hard time when I start asking these questions, especially with my naive concept and basically what I've been through. Don't make me feel invalid because basically I'm asking these questions and somebody else doesn't. That's not my problem. Now let's go back to an old video that I did. There's an old video that was done by a woman named Monica. I'm going to leave the rest of the info. Monica Foster. It was a video called Time to Take Notice. It didn't get a lot of views, but she was nice enough to help me along, and we did click a little bit. And we were probably going to try to do kind of like our own show a little bit, a webcast show. And it got a little bit of views, which was cute, but it couldn't take off because basically I moved to New York and I went through all this damn, crap. The video itself is that actually I was not going to push the video. I'm not trying to actually show that video. I'm trying to acknowledge Monica for a bit. I feel like I need to do this for Girlfriend, because Girlfriend was nice enough to at least give me the time of day and hear me out. Regardless what her opinions was, she was nice enough to hear me out. Monica, webcaster, hyping in sexuality, had problems with the pornographic industry. Supposedly she did videos. I haven't seen them personally, but she did videos for, I believe it was for Vivid Entertainment, and after a few she got blasted out, pushed out, told that actually she was a psychotic, and all this hoopla. A lot of porn stars go through these dilemmas. Very heartbreaking, but that is their industry. It's to be expected, sort of. But you learn and you go back and forth with it. What I'm getting at is that my girlfriend Monica also told me something that was very tragic, and I felt bad for her. And I don't know if it was true or not, but I sympathized with her. Definitely, big time. Because it shouldn't happen, whether if they're a porn star, stripper, whether they're homeless, whatever else. And the information that I just read in social psychology definitely actually pushes this issue. Because I believe if Monica were to actually listen to that information, she would have been able to be a little bit more spoken and advocate for herself using this information and using her knowledge and combining them together. I mean, to be frankly honest, people have motive. So, what I'm getting at is that my girlfriend Monica was raped. But it wasn't just that actually she was raped by just some stranger. Supposedly, from what she told me, one of the actors that she did a scene with crept into her bedroom window and raped her. Now, I'm not going to use any more names, but this is what she told me. Now, she has voiced this supposedly on her own, but if this gets more views, maybe other people could just, give her a heads up and just give her the heads up. She helped me get to this point. She helped me try to expose this. It's only right that actually I tried to do the same thing. So, I kind of want to touch a little bit more so on sexuality. This is found in our own sociology book. I'm going to touch one or two points because, like I said, I don't want to go too much into it. I don't want to go into in depth. I want people to actually take these books and research the information themselves, if they can, and to be able to look at it and be able to pick and choose what they can relate to. As I said beforehand, people, don't look into that. Don't look into that. People have motive. The first thing is, the word sex, when applied to a person, refers largely to elements of one's anatomy. Or anatomy. So, hold on. I'm picking and choosing which one I want to actually use. Each tradition has evolved over time to meet the basic human needs and to provide order to society. Each person in all these diverse societies knows how to behave appropriately. Or do they? Because I have to say, there's a lot of more deviant action happening, and a lot less people being able to actually say they can and be able to say it in an intellectual capacity. If people be able to say it more so in an intellectual capacity and understand this, maybe this would shy away for at least less perception or less percentage of deviant people. So, one's sex and age are often used to determine who holds what positions and who carries out what tasks. Each society develops its own way to meet its expectations and its own interpretations of right and wrong gender role behaviors. So imagine how it is for two gay men or two women. The gender role behavior is kind of, I'm not saying that actually is, I'm not saying that actually there isn't a gender role behavior, but if you're looking at this as actually are homosexual couples, the gender role behavior kind of actually, I don't know, it becomes not shaky, it's just strange and twisted and not as diverse as when it comes to a heterosexual couple, as it states here. At least that's what I'm seeing as an inclination. I'm not saying that actually it isn't like that, because don't get me wrong, there are some people that are a little bit more feminine and, love their bacon and everything else, or there's other men that are a lot more masculine that love mowing their lawn, the gender role behaviors in such a manner. But can you see how it kind of mixes a little bit? And especially if the information's here. And this is, remember, Village Idiot talking about this shit. Like I'm the expert. So, despite emphasis on achieved status in modern societies, society's expectations guiding roles and statuses are largely ascribed, determined by a person's sex. Our attraction to others is expressed by sexuality and our sexual identity. Yeah. Right. As individuals mature, they are expected to adopt the behaviors of appropriate to their anatomical features as defined by society. Good to know. Yet some traits that members of society commonly link to sex are actually learned through socialization. Now, here's some information that actually I found very, whatever. Men traditionally have more networks and higher statuses, as well as greater access to resources outside the home. So what happens if you're a houseboy? Do you have access? Unless you're getting educated, I highly doubt it. Believe me, I speak from experience. While both vary cultures, gender is a learned cultural idea and gender roles are part of a structural system and roles of statuses in society. Our positions, which affect access to power and resources, are embedded in institutions at the mesio level, with cultural defining what is right and wrong. Now here is two more topics, and then we're going to go into story time. You're going to love story time. Language can be powerful in shaping behavior and perceptions of people. Hello! Women also tend to use more related psychological and social processes, while men prefer more discussions of objects and interpersonal topics. It's no wonder I have so many problems with gay men. It's always about objects and interpersonal topics. Hello. So, Story time! Alrighty. Ready to go? Ready to do this? Alright. I just marked my list here of what I already said. Great. Here's the story time. This is just a view, a concept, an idea of where I came from. Here we go. I feel like kicking myself in the ass for this. But trial and error. I've had many relationships with various porn stars. I've had friendships with porn stars. And some of those relationships were very trying. I'm going to kick myself in the ass for saying this. I'm already kicking myself in the ass for saying this now. I used to work as an escort. I used to drive escorts around. I used to work in distribution for gay porn. And like I said, I've had many friends or companions or lovers or whoever else that were porn stars themselves. So it was only idea in such a manner that actually I'd be pushed into doing film. I'm not going to get too much deep into that because, I should know better. But to know better, to ask somebody with a mere high school diploma that actually is being screwed over and over again to know better, when higher educated people are too busy taking advantage of them? Yeah. The only way one can know better is if they educate themselves. Or they educate themselves in such a manner of going to a higher learning institution or basically schooling up another way. That's how one knows better. And we can't be experts on every field. But why stay ignorant? Why should a sex slave stay ignorant? If I stay ignorant, I'm going to be a slave for the rest of my life. Because gay men don't want to marry me. They want to own me. And to be frankly honest, I don't want to be owned anymore. So let me go back to this. When it comes to slaves in a manner, and I'm going to put the link up in the information as well. LGBT community, especially when it comes to gay men particularly, do not talk about sex slavery. The information is not out there. And this is my biggest pet peeve. Because if I had to go through this, and I actually admitted this to other people, and I get laughed at, that goes to show you how prejudice, bias, and how uncultivated our community really is. And now it's time for, I feel like, these advocates that promote sexuality to be able to talk about these true issues. Stop pushing the issue of basically sucking dick, and let's start talking about real fucking issues that actually should have been actually seen, and also the numbers should have been tested and psychologically actually, studied. The last book that I read was basically Humphrey's Tea Room Trade. I have never seen anything else, and so far I'm still trying to find the research on this one. I haven't seen anything else that comes close to it. Though I do believe there is work out there. It seems like it's hard to find. And when do I ask these advocates about these certain things? I'm the bitch for asking it. But then I'm the one that has to take the bullet for admitting that actually I was a sex slave and gets laughed at? Bullshit. I'm done. This is the reason why I have a problem with my community. The numbers are not out there. Now, let's talk about, again, where I'm coming from this situation. Already realized that actually I did escort. Already realized I used to drive escorts around. I did that for some time. I've also actually porn distribution. So like I said beforehand, it was only in time that actually I'd be pushed into this direction. Also, as a sex slave, I was really being pushed into actually this direction of actually doing this sort of work. I'm going to fast forward this. And this is a story. Most likely this can be denied, but this is just a story. True, false, whatever else, that's on everybody else's behalf. I did an interview with Michael Lucas Entertainment. And stupid, right? So here's the thing. I did the initial interview. And my ass decided to go into that office. And I didn't really have the oversized ego. So this is the funny part. I went in, I stripped, I made myself look like a total fucking asshole. I left. Now, don't get me wrong. Anybody and everything can say whatever they want about this. This is fine. Don't get me wrong. The criticism and everything else, anybody and everyone can say, because I ain't that cute. But the truth of the matter is that actually I try to look at this more so as an optimistic thing instead of a pessimistic thing, because most people we actually feel a total humiliation behind it. See, it's not that actually I went in there and made myself like a total fucking ass. It's that actually I had the balls to go ahead and make myself look like an ass in front of the most intelligent, intellectual, cultivated men out there. I made myself look like an ass in front of him. Now the thing is actually, if I can make myself look like an ass in front of him, I can make myself look like an ass in front of anybody and not care. Do you see what I'm getting at? If I had the balls to do that to somebody of that status, can you imagine anybody else? I can make myself look like an ass to anybody and not care anymore. I had the balls to do that. Not a lot of people could. So that's where I try to make that optimistic point of view here. Now, here's the bigger problem. I'm not saying it was that particular individual. I'm not saying it was individuals in that company. Because it could have been people that I spoke to when I did this line of work or that line of work, or maybe other people that actually were boyfriends or anybody else. But because I was integrated into that concept of being into that direction, I became a potential. And because I became that potential, I was viewed that actually this is someone we might be able to get one over on. See, I could have walked out of that office and never heard anything again. But that's not really accurate. Many months or years down the line, I was still acknowledged. And I'm not trying to say, woo! It does happen. So to those people or to those boys or anybody else, just because you walk into a film industry office, do whatever you have to do, walk out and you didn't get the part, doesn't mean that actually you're not a potential and you're not on the list. 2 years, 3 years down the line, somebody else is going to actually want to take a look at you and see how far you progressed. I know this for a fact. I speak on this experience. So, be aware. So, as for the intellectual Michael Lucas, the reason why that actually I look not up to him, but I ask these questions towards him, or basically about him, or anything else that he has to say, because I still find him as an intellectual man. I do. I think he comes up with a lot of brilliant, valid points here. But the reason why actually I say it is because that man could have did anything and everything to destroy anything and everything that I lived for. Especially stripping in front of him and being an ass. He could have done so far worse, or any of his models could have done so far worse, or any of his actually employees could have did so far worse. They left it at that. And that's what I'm grateful for. Do you get what I'm saying now? I'm not saying that actually gay men don't talk. They do talk. But I do give the respect, because it could have been far worse for me. Believe me, I know from other experiences from other porn stars. So this is just to acknowledge just a little bit more information of where I'm coming from. We're going to learn more about me and my views and everything else as more videos progress. But this is just to understand a little bit where I'm coming from, what I'm reading now, why did I went down this road, why I become this way, why am I reading social psychology and nursing, and why am I talking about these issues now? Why do I feel like our advocates, like Michael Lucas, like certain porn stars down the list, why do I feel like that actually asking these particular questions? I'm not trying to say they're the assholes, they need to talk about this, no. It'd be just interesting to be like, listen, you knew where I was coming from. You understood this. You understood where I was coming from to begin with. Don't get me wrong. I even saw Owen Hawk at Sandy Hook Beach one time. At least I thought I did. Who knows? You know, I was so crazed. Who knows? Nobody wants to believe me anyway, right? But I did notice that Owen Hawk was one of those individuals who was the first one to jump on my Twitter account when actually I started posting up about that scandalous blog. And this is the reason why a lot of people don't give me acknowledgement or touch my scandal or point out the scandalous material. There's way too many scandals on there that actually will screw them over if they do acknowledge it. It will be a backlash. So I'm going to have to choose to expose it myself in my own way. Little bit by little bit. So as for, like I said, Owen Hawk and Michael Lucas and all these other damn porn stars like Johnny Hassan or anybody else, I can see why one might be wary about going around me, especially if they're dealing with an ignorant sex slave. But because now I can speak on this, now I'm kind of not trying to turn tables, but I'm asking those questions like, well, if you know about this, why don't you speak about it? It'd be nice to hear their point of view. What? Am I in the wrong for saying it like that? Well, to village idiot trying to mature and understand his surroundings. Bye, boys.